All right, we're live. Welcome, everybody. We're going to start the webinar in a few minutes. We just want to let people join in. We see people coming in as we wait here, and we'll just hang out for a little bit. We have a poll that I'm going to launch. So while you're here, four quick questions to um, to help us understand what you're hoping to learn today, who you are, what you care about. So if you wouldn't mind answering the poll. We've got Adam and Oliver here. We'll start very shortly.
Well, thanks for the introduction, Scott.
Yeah, of course. Of course, it's a pleasure. Really looking forward to the conversation. We'll give people, why don't we do like a 15-second countdown and then we'll kick things off.
Love it.
All right, that feels good. Hello and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We're excited today to talk about how AI native technology is changing the way home builders and developers find, evaluate, and win land. We'll get into where AI earns its place, what's actually working, and where it's all headed. Our guest today is Dr. Adam Gower. He's the founder of GowerCrowd and one of the most trusted voices on raising capital and building smarter. Adam has demoed just about every AI tool in the real estate and development space, so he brings a rare hands-on view of what to look for when you're choosing where to place your bets. Leading the conversation is our founder and CEO, Adam Alexander, Oliver Alexander. One quick note before we start, add your questions to the Q&A window at any time if you've got questions. We'll do our best to get to as many of them as we can. So with that, Oliver, over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Scott. Scott is our Senior Director of Marketing here at Prophetic. And today's conversation will be exactly that, a conversation where we detail how do you evaluate the hype versus the reality with AI? What makes a good platform from a less than optimal platform? But before we get into any of that stuff, I want to introduce Dr. Adam Gower, who's just got one of the most remarkable backgrounds in real estate and technology and literature that I've ever come across. So, Dr. Gower, thank you so much for your time today and joining us. Let's start with perhaps the Cliff Notes or medium condensed version of your professional background because I just find it fascinating.
Well, you're very kind, and thank you for that very generous introduction. If I'm the most accomplished person, you must not know very many people, is all I can say.
I don't know about
Uh,
that.
all right, so extremely briefly, and I'm not very good at brevity, so stop me if I go on. 'Cause I actually started my career back in early 1980s in Southern California. I started pulling wires actually for an electrician. That's how I started, crawling around in attics and basements, pulling wires. But very quickly, I migrated to raising capital for a ground-up multifamily developer in Southern California. And so I was involved in actually every aspect of the business. It was a family office, and so I was involved really in everything involving that. Then the savings and loan crisis hit, and the market collapsed. So I ended up going to Japan. I'd raised a lot of money in Japan. I spent the 90s in Japan doing ground up construction for Universal Studios. I was president of Asia Pacific region. And I did that in the 90s, learned to speak Japanese and whatever else, other stuff over there. Then I came back and set up my own development company. And luckily, I like to say it was genius, but it was actually sheer luck and angst in the middle of the night. Seriously, in 2006 and 7, I started to worry a lot. I'm actually a professional worrier. If I don't have something to worry about, I worry that I'm missing something, kind of thing. But I sold out in '07. right before the GFC, and so ended up going into that crisis with no legacy problems. I was brought into East West Bank, the largest at the time, largest regional bank headquartered in California. And they wanted me to work on their non-performing note portfolio, all real estate collateralized. So I did that, transacted around $1 billion of those notes to investors one at a time, and then went on to Colony Capital, who were the third largest private equity real estate shop in the world at the time. Worked on a $7 billion portfolio for them, doing the same thing pretty much. And then in 2012, the Jobs Act passed, and that allowed for general solicitation, which meant that sponsors, for the first time since 1933 Securities Act, were allowed to raise capital from anybody, basically to advertise. It was basically allowed advertising. And so, short story is that I set up GowerCrowd. And so, what we've been doing since then, so for the last 12, 14 years or so, is building sophisticated digital marketing systems for sponsors to attract retail investors to invest in their deals. And in the last 3 years, 2.5, 3 years, we've been heavily engaged in AI, not just for capital formation, but across all the various verticals within any professional real estate shop, from acquisitions all the way through to operations, capital formation, construction, and exit. That's it in a
Absolutely.
nutshell.
Well, it's a fascinating background for a number of reasons, but the equity side, the technology side, the real estate side, and going through several, as the industry refers to it, as market cycles, right?
Yeah.
There's a boom and bust nature to real estate in general. So having survived that and seeing that and having those scars on your arms, I mean, that gives you a really nice outlook and a very
Mm.
mature perspective on things. And then one of my other favorite tidbits, also a renowned author. How many books now? Six or
Oh,
seven?
yeah. I mentioned this before. I'm actually just opening something else so I can take notes, by the way. I'm not distracted
Sure,
at all.
sure.
So I've actually lost count of how many I've written, but I've self-published a few, but I've had three books published by major publishers, Routledge and Palgrave Macmillan. Palgrave
Incredible.
published two of my books, I think. Yeah, two, and Routledge one. And then I've published my own as well.
Yeah, and that well-rounded approach, I think, is why you've created such an incredible following. And you've got something like 30,000 LinkedIn followers at this point, and Lord knows how many across other platforms.
Mm.
But really, the industry looks to you and takes your opinion quite seriously when it comes to these things. So, would love a quick summary of, from 1,000-foot view or 10,000-foot view, what are you seeing right now with regard to AI in the real estate space, and how does it compare to a couple of years ago?
I love this conversation. Thanks for pitching a softball. Isn't that what it's called to start?
You got to start with those, then we go
You
harder.
start with that, and then we get tough. All right, good. All right. So, what's going on with AI over the last 2 years? All right. So, obviously, it didn't, for the most part, didn't even exist 2 years ago, right? So, I mean, it was a chat GPT came out about what, 2.5 years ago? It's not that long ago that it really emerged for the first time. So rather than describing how it's evolved, let me describe the status of where the market is today and what I see. So for the most part, I'd say almost everyone has tried AI in some way. They've opened up ChatGPT or Claude, they played around with Gemini or Copilot or something. There are still those who haven't touched it at all, which, like, to somebody like me who is deeply immersed in very advanced AI implementation, mind-boggling because it is so transformational for the industry. We're running a accelerator program cohort at the moment, and there's a bunch of people there. When I asked them what platform do they use, what LLM, didn't know what an LLM was, and had never opened one. So there's that at one end. Then you have those who are, I call it tinkering with AI. So still using AI in a kind of Google search mode. They understand that the output's a little bit more sophisticated. It's more narrative. There may be some other functionality like, spreadsheet stuff, maybe touch on some other stuff. But for the most part, it's really just kind of basic interacting and beginning to understand this is pretty cool. The next level are those who are beginning to expand to multiple LLMs, multiple AI platforms, and understand that they have different qualitative type of output. The output is subtly different across the different platforms, and they're beginning to do more sophisticated work. So that's the kind of work that typically, again, our accelerator program people end up doing. So they're doing, takeoffs, right? So if you've got, your kind of construction drawing, you could do takeoffs, with a reasonable degree of accuracy. So you can end up with a budget fairly quickly that might have taken you a lot longer and cost money to be able to do that. For example, feasibility studies, really in-depth, sophisticated feasibility studies that previously you'd spend, eight to 15, $20,000. You can do it in 20 minutes. You can pull something of comparable quality up using AI. And then the final layer are those who are truly cutting edge, Oliver. And the truly cutting edge, and that's the folk that we work with, we integrate this for our clients, are extremely rare, this category. And this category is those who have understood or internalized that using AI is transformational for not just the industry, but also for the entity, for the enterprise. And so what they're doing is they're integrating AI across all of their verticals simultaneously in a very particular way. To be clear, and we can talk about that if you want to, but they're integrating it on the vertical level. Their team, their heads, their team leaders, whatever vertical, are becoming extremely proficient themselves in AI. They're building the systems themselves with guidance, and they are already dominating the market. I mean, we have clients, for example, who are looking at 5 deals a week that pass their initial screen, who are now looking at 50
Yep.
deals a week, all good deals, right? All
Yep.
that work for them. So you can imagine what kind of knock-on effect that has in the company. So you have to have every single layer has to be optimized in order to be able to accommodate that kind of throughput. Anyway, again, if you don't stop me, I will continue talking. So don't
No,
hesitate to slow me down.
no,
Just
I think it's
adjust my
all
lights and
extremely
stop me.
relevant. The thing I like to think of as well is like you think of the adoption curve of new technologies where most people are familiar with the early adopters, the main market, and then the late adopters. If you think of AI as an entire subject, we're kind of in the middle of that, where the early adopters, those were a couple of years ago. The main market is really sinking its teeth into it now. In a year or two, it'll kind of be in the late adopter phase. But then if you shift that and say, okay, forget about AI, but now let's talk extremely high precision, vertical specific AI and its impact and the edge it's giving in a given industry. That is just now leaving that early adopter phase in our outlook and is just now starting to hit the mainstream and become an integral backbone of the enterprise, the modern way enterprises do business. So, a good example of that is Scott came up with this after one of our customer interviews. They mentioned this and they said, you know, Prophetic has become a daily part of my routine. And that was such a sticking moment for us where it was like, wow, this technology, once you deploy it, you learn about it, you integrate it into your systems, it becomes a daily habit, and that daily habit compounds and provides tremendous edge. So before we get too deep into that stuff, a quick
Mm,
step back. What the heck is Prophetic? Dr. Gower, we've talked about this a lot before. You've seen the platform several times. We've taken deep
mm,
dives into it. But at a really high level, Prophetic enables growth in real estate development, right? We help you find sites vastly faster than any method previously, orders of magnitude faster,
mhm.
automate the analysis of them, and then you stay organized. You have all your acquisition targets, whether good, bad, or ugly, in one place. And that institutionalized knowledge continues to give you an edge in the market. So instead of worrying too much today about, where's the tech going to be in 2, 4, whatever years, because it's changing so quickly and we could talk so much about that, but ultimately that's just a thumb in the air analysis. Let's talk today about what is actually being achieved in the market today and what is actually occurring by folks who are using this and really grasping the horsepower to its fullest extent. Um, so we're going to talk a little bit about the growth achieved, the cost savings, and all those factors. But I wanted to first get your, you know, brief summary of what was your impression when you saw Prophetic, and why did it stand out, and why were you willing to have this conversation with us as a true innovative AI platform versus one of the hype ones.
Ah, yeah, okay. All right. So I have okay, just it's a brief background before we get into the
Sure.
detail of your question. So I have done extensive research to find platforms like yours, but in commercial real estate, in the sense of being in commercial real estate. Whether it's market analysis or operations, or whatever it is, uh, and there are a lot of fake it till you make it shops out. It's kind of cool, actually. They build. I hadn't, I've heard the term, and I heard it with what was it called? Oh, I forget. Anyway, it was that whatever the medical whatever company. I forget the name of it. Anyway,
Oh, Theranos,
yeah,
maybe.
yeah, yeah. That's so fake it till you make it. I kind of knew the term, but I wasn't really sure what it meant until I heard about that company. There's a lot of that out there. So you find these great websites that promise the earth, and because I'm doing research and I like to field test everything, my company tests everything before we roll it out to clients. I mean, we'll spend a lot of time testing and researching before we even think about sending it to a client or using it for a client. So I like to go out and do this research. And so a lot of these websites have incredible promise, right? So you go to the website, it's just unbelievable. When you actually talk to the guys running it, they are, it's like literally, I spoke to, I mean, I can see them in my mind's eye, a couple of guys straight out of college or dropouts from college who don't really understand real estate. That's the first thing. They're tech. But because they've had an idea that they think is a good idea and somebody has put some money behind them, some, Silicon Valley incubator thinks, oh, these are bright guys and, they've got a good idea. So we'll give them a 500 grand and see how far they can run with it, right? And point them in some kind of direction. In reality, there's no substance to it at all. I mean, there's nothing there except for a couple of bright guys who know how to vibe code, right? To just be really crass and crude about it. So you got to weed your way through those, and then I think the biggest challenge. I'd be interested to hear your view on this as well. Is data, all right? Is capturing the data and then being able to effectively analyze it. So then there are companies like Prophetic who are clearly super advanced and who provide true competitive advantage. And a lot of there's so many tools that I use and the way that we run our business today that give us incredible productivity gains and make us incredibly competitive. I mean, the amount of time it takes me to deliver what we deliver as kind of base services today is probably, I'm not kidding, it's probably a fifth of what it was 2 years ago. I mean, just the amount of time that I am left with once we've done our core services. And that's why we just add AI on top of that, because we want to provide value. So instead of reducing our fees, we just add more value. And it's exponential, the value. Yeah, so that's my thought. I mean, it baffles me that, for example, I don't know, there's 55 people, however many people on this call, and thousands of developers around the country that who are looking for land, that they wouldn't use a tool like Prophetic, and it is a fundamental competitive advantage. It's almost beyond that. It seems like it's mandatory to use these tools today. It baffles me when people don't.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously we're highly biased on our side, but we
Yeah.
certainly agree. But the results have really just proven that themselves. Like when I was at a conference about a year ago for ULI, was speaking and asked the audience, "Hey, who's got a high performing land team?" Someone raised their hand. Said, "Great. How many folks are on it? 3 folks. How many parcels per month can this team analyze in terms of off-market dirt for potential acquisition?" He said, "Well, a good team, they might do 2, 3 parcels a day per person. Great. So that's 9 parcels a day, 5 a week, 45 a week times 4. Okay, we're talking 120, 150, 200 parcels a month for this team. Great. We've got users doing 12,000 parcels a month on a single user basis. We've got teams in Northern California doing 4,500 parcels per month. And to someone who's outside the space or who's in the space and hasn't really thought about the math behind it of like what this means, it's important to remember there's roughly 160 million parcels of land in the United States. That's everything, right? A tiny little slice of a condo all the way to 50,000 acre, nature preserve. The reality, though, is only 1.5 to 2% of all that real estate is on the market at any given time. So if you want to be successful in real estate development, if you want to speculate on land, do horizontal development, home building, you name it, if you're only looking at what's on the market and you're only relying on your network, you're giving 2% of the market to your future. You're saying, we're going to bet everything on this 2% that's available. And instead, what the big nationals do, that the top 2 or 3 firms of each industry, they can throw headcount at this. They can throw 150,000 in salary per analyst and put 10 of them in a market and say, brute force our way through this. Let's find the good dirt. And that's why they've been able to achieve such tremendous scale. But what's happening though is this technology has unlocked that ability for everyone without having this vastly expensive headcount. And so when you can open up that 98% of land that's off market and search by what you intend to develop, that's the aha moment where your outbound is now hundreds of letters per month and hundreds of calls per month. And if you convert 10% of those to contract and 20% of those to purchase, you don't have land as a constraint anymore. And what we've seen multiple times from our clients, capital becomes the constraint. And that is just such a fundamental change in the real estate development world. We had a client who deployed in Seattle market. They spent all their capital in 9 months instead of the expected 12. So they were ahead of the market about 25%. They had to go to their board, get special permission because they spent $30 million on land using Prophetic in 9 months. And that to them was just a cataclysmic moment of, wow, this is just, it's time to go. It's time to go dominate this market even further. Then you can look at it from another perspective of, okay, growth is important, but I am not interested in growing at that level or at that pace. So then you might have the question of, well, then how much cost savings can be achieved here? And you can look at this in a number of ways. If you're paying someone to do the initial zoning and diligence analysis, great, that can be cut immediately, of course. If you're using your brokers for your inbound leads, great, continue to do so. Those are valuable partnerships, but don't rely on them as your glass ceiling for growth. Instead, you can do these off-market huntings. And if you have a broker provided lead versus an off-market provided lead, one of them has no broker fees, and those add up tremendously. So we had a client in a top 30 home builder out of their Phoenix division who saved over 400,000 in broker fees this year to date alone, that one division, just because they were able to surface some of these and get them under contract and purchased versus relying on their brokers who they continue to buy land from, but it unlocked a new frontier and they saw some savings from that. So that altogether, plus the team efficiency, I mean, that's what we're talking about when it's, really just not a fair playing field anymore. But I think it's important to remember, distinguishing the hype from the reality. What are some things people can do to practice this discipline? I'm curious to get your perspective on these, if you agree with them or what other ones you would add. For me, it's talk to the builders. Everyone and their mom says, hey, we got AI, and it's easy to slap up a website and throw some labels on it. It's even easy to put a chat bot into a system and talk to it. The difference, though, is I like to compare it to like a Stradivarius violin, right? Beautiful instrument, incredibly valuable, very powerful. You hand it to a child, it will produce a sound. You will play that violin, but you hand it to a concert violinist, and you get a beautiful melody that comes out. And that's kind of how to think about it here. Is the former example is you're bolting on AI, you're handing a very powerful tool to an unsophisticated operator, and you're going to get a result that matches that pairing. If you hand it to a very sophisticated expert engineer, expert violinist, you get a symphony that comes out the other end. And so to us, it's a crucial thing, regardless of who you're talking to, whether it's on the land acquisition side with Prophetic or underwriting or you name it. If you say you have AI, great. Put me in touch with your AI department. Who is your head of research on there? How did you build this technology? And just ask some questions and see how they react. If those people are unavailable to talk to, red flag. If those people are not highly experienced, we're talking decades of experience. AI has been around for decades. It's just the LLMs and mass market use has more recently developed. And then it's talking to them in a way where they don't seem threatened and are beating around the bush of answering directly. So I think that was the first point here is talk to the builders, but thoughts on that?
Sorry, so what's your question?
Well, what do you think is that a good way to evaluate a platform? A
Oh, a
good one or a
platform?
legitimate one or a hype one? I always recommend folks talk to the folks who are the AI
Oh,
experts behind it.
you could do that. I mean, but you're also technical, all right, Oliver. Most people wouldn't know if you have a conversation with somebody who built it, like from what? Because I've got no idea. Start talking about whatever MCP and APIs and RAGs and who knows what.
Yep.
You're like lost, like completely. I like
Yes.
to do demos. That's how we met. I was like,
Yes.
show me the platform. Like, how's it going to help me? It's all I care about. At the end of the day,
Yep.
nobody. I'm just going to counter what you said, frankly. I mean, you're
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
technical
Please.
guy, so that's how you approach it. But for mortals, like me and every other developer out there, all we care about is how's this going to help me? That's all I want to know. Is it going to help? Right? What's the benefit of using this thing? It's like the old lawnmower analogy, right? The lawnmower sales. The guy that tries to sell lawnmowers by the revs per minute and how many blades it's got, what angle it's at, and all the technology behind it. That's one way of selling it. Or you could just point to a beautifully mown lawn and say, if you want yours to look like this, buy this. That's
Yep.
all you need to do. That's the demo. And so that's what I like to do. And I think it's the easiest way in. Get a demo, do a trial, right? Even if
Yes.
pay a subscription for a month or something, get it rolling, and just try it. Tap into support and see what kind of support you get. If you're struggling to make headway with something and you're not sure where the button is on the page, ping the chat bot and see if there's somebody there at the other end, or will they do a training session or send you a video that's easy to follow to get up and running. That's the way to test it. And then with platforms like Prophetic, you're gonna get results so quickly. You're gonna realize so quickly this is something. I mean, that's why you should you do demos, right? Because you know that as somebody sees it, they're going to get hooked. Because they're going to realize, how did I ever live without this? Whereas if you go to, and that's really the best way. It's like these two lads I told you about that both dropped out of Stanford. It was like a badge of honor. I think they got into Stanford in order to drop out, these two lads. They didn't know anything about real estate, but they had an idea. But they weren't able to do a demo. They had nothing. There was nothing there. So that's really the best way is to get it. I think I forget the example. Oh, the violin. But yeah, it's like taking a test drive in a car. Somebody could walk around the car and tell you all about the functionality of the engine. But no, how does it drive? And the only way to
Yep.
really know that is to get in and take it for a spin. So that would be my recommendation.
Absolutely. And the test period is crucial. Like a sales rep can give you a demo and they can make it look sharp and they can show you a market they know really well. In reality, though, when you have a week or two to just go heads down and play with it and test it, that's going
Mm,
to be a very different experience. And that second piece you mentioned of, talk to the support, that's the partnership quality piece where it comes down to I'm going to make enterprise grade decisions from this platform and I'm going to deploy serious capital using this data, using this technology. What happens when I have a question on some new functionality that comes out and I don't understand it? What happens when this map is missing a piece of data that I know to be true? What
mm,
occurs from that point forward? I mean, the surface area of data and real estate in the United States is massive. So who is your partner and how are they going to back you up in those moments? And that is also something that really should be tested during the trial period. It's very, very hard for the fake it till you make it folks to be able to offer that level of support Whereas if you have the enterprise clients, you have the results, you have that system built already, it's plug and play, use it, try it, buy it, and deploy, and you've got success out of the gate.
But look,
Uh,
here's the other thing as well, though, Oliver, is that the relative cost, and I forget Prophetic's, pricing structure, but in general, it is de minimis in relative to the value. I mean, I
yeah,
pay for, and I subscribe to all the LLMs, whatever, not the minimum. I'm like the next level for all of them. So I don't know how much I pay in subscriptions every month, but the amount of output and value that I get from it's like having a full team of assistants working for me. I know it sounds cliched, but that's how it works. I mean, I have stuff running all the time. And in the training I show people that I show people how to multitask. I actually, I like to joke, I call it ACDC, but I think it's ADHD. But it's quite useful actually to have that ACDC these days because you send out a request somewhere and it takes just a few minutes, for the AI to process and respond. So you don't sit and wait for it. You trigger another one over here. Come back to this one. If it's not finished, you do another one here. So you've got multiple tasks. I like to think of it like as literally like having human assistants. You'd say, okay, I got this. I want you to write this feasibility study. Here's the first step I want you to go through. Come
yeah,
back when you're done. Right?
yeah,
And 2 days later, they come back. Whereas with AI, it's 2 minutes.
yeah,
So you got to be ready with the next step. And it changes the way you work. Here's the important thing about using Prophetic for a user is really effective use is to think about how it is changing your business. It's not just a single isolated tool, but if you're able to do, just to pick your numbers, 12,000 searches a month. This is versus, what was it, 200 or something that you said, right? With a full team. Now you got one person covering 12,000. This is now a strategic decision for the organization. And that strategic decision is, do we scale or do we become fundamentally more selective in the deals that we do?
yeah,
Narrow our scope to the truly ideal opportunities that we have because now we control 12,000 sites. We can find those diamonds
yeah,
and we can focus on those and keep the same scale, but increase the quality of the output that we're getting and the developments that we're doing. Or do we scale and look at the same qualitatively the same sites and just do more of them? So now
yeah,
you have this board level, C-suite level decision that has to be layered on that. And it's a decision you got to make quickly. You know
yeah,
why? Because if you don't, someone else will. And
yeah,
somebody else is doing that. And they're out there buying your sites, right?
yeah.
Basically.
Well, and that leads to one of the most interesting points I think that's going to happen, which is Javon's paradox. Back in the steam engine years, they said, "Oh my God, this new steam engine technology, it uses 20% of the coal the old engines use. The coal market's going to plummet. This is, our hair's on fire. What's going to happen?" Coal consumption went up. And that's because the trains could go so much farther. There were so much more lines. It was so much more economical to run. And so that's what we're seeing here as well, where a lot of people think AI is going to take my job in land acquisition. It's going to replace me as a developer. And there's a lot of fear. But we just do not see that playing out in the field. Our clients end up hiring more analysts because they can enter new markets faster. They can canvas those markets more effectively. And ultimately, this technology is replacing the grunt work that no one really wants to do. No one wants to go spend time analyzing a zoning manual and conducting diligence and going back and forth with engineering to get a yield estimate just so you can write the damn offer to put it under contract. When AI and technology can do those things for you, you get to do the things that AI cannot replace. Knocking on doors, talking to landowners, and getting deals done for better prices because it's an off-market transaction. So that's really where their focus is able to go. And it's not about reducing headcount. It's more about let's just put our time where it's most effective and will generate the most ROI. But I think the next 5 years will be really interesting because there's going to be two groups of folks. There's those who kind of put their head in the sand and don't adopt this technology. They will either retire or be outcompeted. And then, as we refer to them, there's a whole new segment that will enter the market. We call them the development curious. Um, think of your friends who have capital. They know enough to be dangerous about real estate. They wouldn't lose their shirt if they did a quadplex and it didn't make much money or even lost money. But they'd like to do more. They'd like to do a multifamily. They'd like to do a project for the first time. This tech is going to allow them to enter the market at an unprecedented rate and at a very high level of sophistication where they're not making the amateur mistakes that maybe they used to. So do you see that as the future as well? Because we see that as there's the head in the sand folks who will get out competed. Then there's a whole new segment that's about to enter. Do you think that'll happen?
Well, you know what? Actually, you just give me an idea. Actually, using Prophetic, what I would do, I mean, I wouldn't because I'm busy enough as it is, but
Sure.
one possibility is to use it, go out and buy undervalued land lots and
Yeah.
sell them to developers,
Yeah.
right? And just flip them. Basically,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, listen, I'm ahead of you. I know what you want. I know what you're looking for, and I'm ahead of you. I'm like miles ahead of you. So I'm
Yeah.
going to pick these things up, and in my wake, I'm going to list them. You're going to buy them from me. I'm going to make money. You'll still
Yeah.
do okay, right? But that's another way of leveraging it, and that's how it. That's the new industries. Here's the thing, right? People talk about losing their jobs, and it's going to devastate employment and everything. Look at the people in this room. I can see four people on the screen in front of me because I'm looking at participants. What is it? Panelists. You, me, Scott, and Rick. All employed because of AI, right?
Yeah.
You three particular. I mean, you'd be doing something else, but it's a new industry that's evolving. The other thing, actually, Oliver, that this is more on a personal level. So I'm kind of drifting away a little bit from the core of your question. But going
Sure.
back to something that you said, you talked about replacing grunt work. It does replace grunt work. But what does that mean, actually, that it replaces grunt work? What it leaves you with is actually the note that I took down was it forces actually deeper thinking. A lot of
Yeah.
people like to think, oh, look, I can put this simple prompt in and it gives me the whole amazing output better than I could have done it. So it's going to kill critical thinking and people are going to get lazy. I remember when calculators came out. Gosh, that really ages me, doesn't it? And I really do remember when they came out. And there was this worry that we would stop, we would lose intellectual capacity. It was we had to learn our 20 times table. I don't know if you had to do this. You had to know it by
No, yeah.
heart. 7 sevens are what, 9 12s are what. It had to like be able to answer this really quickly, all the way up to 20, right? Um, and uh, and so the idea that calculators were going to just make us intellectual idiots was fairly commonplace, but it didn't happen. And then spreadsheets. I mean, when you think about the evolution of spreadsheets and now AI, what it actually forces you to do is to be creative, curious, and willing to explore. Actually, that's my motto when it comes to AI: creativity, curiosity, and a willingness to explore. It
Good.
forces deep thinking. It's like this example that I just gave you, somebody that starts to use prophetic and realizes, okay, finding land is no longer an issue, right? It's been a serious bottleneck my entire career, right? And my father's career and my grandfather's career, multiple. It's like it's always been the challenge is finding
Yeah.
land. That has now gone away. And so what it's done is it has changed the nature of the business. So it forces you now to think, as I said, strategically. How do we deal with this new tool that we have available to us? If this one aspect, this core aspect of our business has now become simplified or
Yep.
what's the word, rationalized, or whatever you want to call it. It's no longer an issue. That fundamentally changes the nature of our business. So, how do we want to grow our business? And I find that profoundly intellectually stimulating and actually of far greater value
Yep.
than figuring out, okay, how do we find a patch of land in this town? How many phone calls do I need to make today?
Yep.
Right?
Yep. And there's the technology that you just described, which is okay, finding it is no longer a problem. Now I'm thinking really strategically about how do I go deeper and create a really compelling product in the market or really deeply understand the competitive landscape so that when I build 3 bed, 3 bath homes, which no one thought was viable, they're actually selling like hotcakes because we determined that the market needed that. Like there's so much opportunity to get the data to sing for you and help develop your market strategy and spend more time really where you can make more ROI. And the the future of communities, I think, is also going to change pretty quickly. This is one of the things we've seen with our users who we have this current land use arbitrage filter. So you can look for any parcel across, a state or a major CBSA area. It doesn't matter. All the munis at once, draw a giant polygon. Say, I want 1 to 5 acre site where I can do attached or detached housing with a decent density, limited environmental issues. And I want it to currently have office space from 1980 or prior, or a church that's tax exempt on it. Because what we know is that those Class C, Class B office spaces don't pencil anymore. They're often vacant. The owners are looking to unload them. You can check their financing and see how underwater they are. So those guys are easy to cut a deal. They're eager. The second piece is there's been a huge decline in the amount of folks going to church facilities in the terms of the physical presence, at least in California and in Oregon. And so a lot of those properties are very, very prime locations with a big, big footprint, multiple acres in an area where there's no good land left that are open to those acquisition conversations because they're consolidating into one location or, getting rid of an older asset that's too expensive to maintain. So we have users buying up these old tax exempt church properties left and right. And what's
Mhm.
interesting is even when they're off market, great, you can find them easily with Prophetic. But a lot of them are on market today and they sit on the market for so long because I think a lot of people don't understand at scale. This is a prime redevelopment opportunity, even though it's currently a church. You may think of it as a church. It's not in bad condition, something like that. Folks who are seeing the forest through the trees are really starting to stockpile those and say, in 5 years, we're going to take this and really renovate it or replace it with residential infill infrastructure. So I think that's one of the things we'll start to see is the communities themselves will
Mm.
start to change much, much faster because when you have such serious capital trying to solve the housing shortage in combination with this technology that helps you find it, your neighborhood will probably start to look and feel different faster than it has in the past. And that
Mm.
can be seen as a good or a bad thing, but it is probably coming in most of the communities out there.
Well, don't worry. There's always local government to slow everything down. I mean, you can count on them to, throw all kinds of hurdles in the way,
That's for
irrespective of what
sure.
the tech can do.
That's for sure. And that's the interesting part as well of, how do the municipalities respond or leverage the technology? And the reality is they'll probably be the latest adopters, right? Even if a government body says we love this new tech, it helps us plan our zoning and our future tax base most effectively. In 2 years, we'll get the approval and we'll purchase it, right? So they'll probably be later to the game, but they will start using it because it is so sophisticated in saying, of all the land that's currently zoned for residential, let's say, or for industrial, here's the percent that's likely to sell or likely to be on the market. So therefore, your goal of developing this much industrial or residential or whatever cannot be met based on today's current zoning. So you either need to adjust your goal or adjust the zoning, and the tech can help you make those decisions much more effectively. So I think we'll start to see the municipalities make smarter decisions, though I don't know that it'll be faster.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a whole different discussion, Oliver, right? Because you got to show them how to generate votes
Yep.
before you can show them anything actually logical about
Yeah.
housing supply. But that's a whole different discussion.
Yeah, that's a long one. Um, I think a few other things to just keep in mind for folks who are looking at platforms. like you said earlier, does the vendor actually speak real estate, or are they talking tech and trying to act like they know real estate?
Mm.
It's this is a very complex subject and requires expertise.
Yeah, I
Um,
think this is something that is important as well. I mean, look, what I find with a lot of platforms is that they are built by tech guys. Forgive me because I forget exactly your guys' background, so forgive me. But you got to have real estate people on the team who understand the industry and also communicate really well. And this is something that is revealed when you start talking and actually start demoing and testing platforms, is the kind of feedback that the support team asks of you. And
yep,
how do they adapt to what it is that you're looking for
yep,
and develop? Because it is, like you've said, it's an incredibly rapidly changing tech environment. It's like nothing any of us have ever seen before. I mean, the speed is unbelievable. Like these cohorts that I do, this training that I do, I used to teach at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. They hauled me in to do a real estate investment and finance class. And I did it 2 years on a run, whatever. And it was easy because I prepared all the 10 sessions, or however many, 20 sessions, however many there were, and then just did them again the following year. Just dusted off the old files and ran the same thing. It was easy. These cohorts I'm doing with the AI Accelerator program, it changes all the time. Like all the time. I did one 3 months ago. I'm running one now. It's different.
yeah,
It's like I have to, but it's actually good. It's I actually enjoy it.
yep,
I like being forced to stay ahead of the curve, not just
yep,
because you can get really lazy with it, right? You can move fast, you can stay ahead, and then you discover the power, you implement it, and you just get lackadaisical and you think, oh, well, you look at these amazing systems I've got without realizing that actually they are in need of upgrade.
yep.
You built them 2 weeks ago and now Fable has come out, so you can do something fundamentally different with it. You got to stay ahead. And that's where the intellectual challenge comes from. Yeah, I'm kind of drifting from the topic a little bit, but that's why I find it so intellectually stimulating, actually, the whole process. Oh, look, Scott emerged.
Hey
He's
guys,
back from his nap.
I'm back from my nap. This conversation has been thrilling. How could anyone sleep during this? But I did want to open it up for questions from the audience. We've had a few questions come in.
Oh,
We've got about 9 minutes left. So, if you don't mind, can we turn it over to the audience?
of course.
All
Fine
right.
with me. Yeah.
The first question was from someone who is a prophetic customer, and they've come here. They wanted to hear about how to raise capital. So with all this,
Mm.
all the opportunity to find, analyze, and really discover land that's worth putting bids on, what advice, Adam, do you have, or what stories could you share for this person who's asking about, how to raise capital in this current market?
Okay, good. So I hope we've got several hours left, so I can
Yeah.
actually run through the whole process on this. Okay, so you tell me if I can share a link. It's entirely up to you. I don't want to,
Absolutely.
uh, hijack your um, uh, event here. So I'll put something in the chat. Oh, I don't have a chat, apparently. Do I have a chat? I don't. I just have a Q&A.
How
Um,
about this? If you
okay, so here's the story with, just tell me where I can put it. Can I put it in the Q&A? Can everyone see that or no? No, I don't think so. Anyway, let me answer the question. It's not easy. Capital formation is the ultimate bottleneck, right? At the end of the day. That's why I was talking about strategic implementation. If you decide you're going to go with quality, stay the same level, you don't need to worry about capital. If you want to scale and do more, you got to worry about capital. So if all of your verticals internally are functioning at full AI warp speed, the block is going to be capital. It's very difficult to raise capital today. You need to, mostly because there's been a lot of bloodshed with novice sponsors coming into the market over the last few years who've blown up their investors. So there's a lot of people who've lost money, and there's a lot of hesitation and doubt in the market. It's very unpredictable. I mean, the news cycle is changing even faster than AI. It's insane. So it's very unpredictable. So it's very difficult. Here's the trick, actually. So this is something we've been exploring with our clients successfully. Everyone's here because we're talking about AI, right? We're here because we're interested in AI. All right, so I'm just going to peel back the kimono a little bit, right? So you can see under the hood to mix metaphors. Everyone's here because of AI. So use, implement AI and talk about that with your prospects, how you use AI. That will draw them in the same way, actually, as this webinar has brought people in. It will also bring investors into you. If you talk about how you use it, okay, look, we ran a spreadsheet, we did a feasibility study. I'm going to show you how we did that. I'm going to teach you how to do it, right? It's a webinar showing you our prowess in doing feasibility studies. By the way, here's our deal is the case study we're going to use. So what happens is people come in, they learn AI from you, but they also learn who you are and they establish a relationship with you. And the reason that works is the way to raise capital is education. Honestly, it's a difficult. I don't even know where to start in 2 minutes. I'll give you one simple answer to that, and that is, I was on a panel. Somebody asked me on a panel some years ago, or not so long ago. They said the panel is how to raise $5 million in 10 days. Right? The answer to that is start a year ago. That's how you raise $5 million in 10 years. Seriously. You got to prepare, you got to have the right infrastructure. I'm sorry I can't be any more detail. It's an impossible question to answer quickly.
Adam, if
Well,
you
and I
could share the link with us, we can share it with the audience in
I
an
don't even know
email.
how to share a
Or
link
just
on.
share with me after this and we'll make sure everyone gets it.
All right.
And I think as well, like I've always been such a big fan of land option contracts. You know, it's so cost effective to put an option to develop a parcel pending the entitlement status. And if you have a couple options on really promising pieces of land, your cost is low, the potential is very high, and you can take that scenario to an investor and say, I used AI to find it, I used AI to model it. Here's the options we have. Here's the reality. Now let's do this at scale. And so you can build your story much more effectively with a tidbit of efficacy to date. A couple more questions here from Tim. So, if supply is fixed, right, the supply of parcels in the market to purchase for development, yet demand is now massively increasing due to the transparency, due to the amount of outreach people can do, address the implications of land acquisition pricing. And that question just went away. I was reading the second part of it. Anyways, missed that. But I think it's a really good point to call out, Tim. Um, when you have a fixed amount of supply, I think that's the first thing I would talk about is the supply is not fixed. The supply may be fixed in the sub-market or market you are currently considering and exhaustively searching. Charlotte, yeah, it's going to be a bloodbath. Everyone is hunting for the same parcels. There's so much demand for single-family detached residential subdivisions. There's so much off-market outreach occurring there. What about the communities outside of the areas everyone else is looking at? So your ability to determine not only where the good dirt is in a market you know well, but what market should you be targeting? We just ran an analysis of our DevMap system, which is every new residential subdivision in the United States. We detect it from early entitlements all the way through selling. And we tried to answer a simple question. What are some of the CBSAs or market areas that have the fastest list to close? Shockingly, number two in the country was Birmingham, Alabama. I mean, how many have that on the top of their list for where the hottest markets for residential subdivisions are? It never would have in a million years been in my list that Alabama is anywhere in the top 20 or three, let alone top two. So it comes down to not only understanding the supply in your market, but also understanding other markets where you don't have as much demand. And then also keep in mind the fluid nature of real estate in general. The land is scoured diligently, but the parcel that's no good may be terrific in a year because the utility line is extended, because they annex the area around it, and now it's much easier to annex into the city. So keep in mind that institutionalization of the knowledge, this parcel is bad today because of XYZ. Well, what happens when that variable changes, and can you detect it first? And that's what this technology does, is it often is able to associate this thing changed, alert, heads up, therefore you need to go talk. And the supply that was here is actually a bit better than it used to be because something has changed. So it's not only about detecting what, going after the good stuff in your market, but detecting changes in the markets and detecting markets that are performing better than you would expect. Okay.
That's great. Thank you.
Post.
So we've got another question for someone who is asking for a land veteran who trusts their gut. What is the argument that AI makes their experience more valuable, not less valuable?
Oh, easy one here. Your experience is going to catch the diligence issues that a lot of other folks would miss and save you wasting time and spinning wheels on excuse me, on the acquisitions that are no good. So it's going to avoid you dealing with a bunch of the BS, but at the same time, it just allows you to spend more time doing what you're best at, which is shaking hands, negotiating, building relationships, sending Christmas cards, and getting those off-market landowners to call you first when the day comes. And I think this is another thing that people just don't really realize is happening. The baby boomer generation, they've made so many investments, they own so much land. At what point do you liquidate that? It's time to retire. It's time to enjoy your retirement. It's time to do estate planning. The interest in these folks of selling the land that they've acquired is much, much higher than people realize. So have the conversation and try it, because you would not believe how many people are actually open to the sale discussion.
Mm. You also have a really cool little toy, don't you, for reaching out to people?
That we do.
It's
So
the
we can.
coolest thing. I love that.
It's magically effective. You can
Explain
skip
what that
trace.
is. It's really cool.
It's easy to skip trace a landowner, right? What's their name, phone number? You can do that for any parcel in the US with Prophetic. And I shouldn't say it's easy, but it's hard to get right. And we've gotten that right. But the second part is I don't pick up my phone. I don't respond to texts. If someone's like, hey, can I buy your land? I'm like, block, block, block. I don't trust you. But you can send a handwritten card to the landowner through Prophetic. And our users generally see a 0.5% to 1% response rate when they're sending a corporate form letter with a logo and photos and printed out, because it's spam. It looks like spam. It goes in the trash. If I get a handwritten card in the mail with ink on the outside, normal little postage stamp, same font on the inside, I'm going to respond even if I say, no, I don't want to sell right now, but I'll keep your card handy, because Adam took the time to write a handwritten card to me. And our users have an 11 to 23% response rate versus 0.5% to 1% when they send the cards. So the strategy is send a card, introduce yourself, call them a week later or text them. And now you're a real person with real market intelligence and you have a tremendous edge.
Yeah, I really like that.
That's great. One more question, and then we'll have to call it because we're already a minute over time. But when you talk to builders who have tried an AI tool and bounced off of it, what usually went wrong?
Adam, what do you think?
Probably promise versus delivery, I think would be the first thing. You get in, you realize, okay, as I'm working on a platform right now, I'm just testing. It's pretty cool on its face. It's supposed to find one of the aspects is distress, right? So foreclosure and bankruptcy. And every site I've seen so far is at least 10 years out of date. I
Good
know
God.
these sites. Like, wait a minute. So I think promise versus delivery is the biggest hurdle. And you know what happens if you fail on that? You're never going to go back. I mean, you'll never go back. It's like you gotta deliver.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think to add to that, does the platform do what it's expected to do, and does it do it well and accurately? Sure. The other piece is the deployment handled as an official enterprise deployment? Prophetic is easy to use, sure, but at the end of the day, if corporate isn't explaining, or the principals aren't explaining to their users or their divisions, here's why we're doing this, here's the outcomes it'll achieve, and here's how it makes your life easier. And then here's a Prophetic team. They will train you, they will monitor your usage, they are your friends and advocates here. So as long as you have the purchaser, the sponsor, talking with the users, talking with Prophetic or the supplier, that's how deployments are effective. But if you sign a deal and then send an email login to someone and say good luck, your results are not going to be as strong. So take it seriously and, spend that extra few hours during the deployment phase and deploy it right.
Thank you both. Well, that's all the time we have. Huge thanks to Adam for joining us. Thank you, Oliver, for leading the conversation. And thanks to everyone who joined us today. If you want to see what we talked about in action, reach out to the Prophetic team. We'd be happy to give you a demo. We'll follow up with Adam's link. He had a link to some information for one of the questions that was asked. Have a great rest of your day, and thanks again for joining. Of
Thanks, everyone. And thanks, Dr. Gower.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Of course.
All right.
See you around.
So long.